My name is Caroline Mercer. And last week, a lawyer I'd never met handed me a sealed letter from the woman who raised me, the only person who ever made me feel like I belonged. The envelope was thick, sealed in dark wax. My grandmother's initials pressed into the surface like a final warning. Across the front, in her delicate script, were 5 words that rearranged everything I thought I knew about my life. Don't read this at home. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so I tucked it into my purse and pretended not to feel it burning through the leather. It was supposed to be a celebration for my brother. Evan, a rooftop dinner overlooking downtown Boulder, complete with champagne, a string quartet, and my mother's endless reminders to smile for the guests. My birthday happened to fall on the same night, though that detail had somehow vanished from the invitations. It's not that big a deal, Mom said when I asked about it. You know how hard your father worked to put this together. I looked at her, then at the banner fluttering above the terrace that read, "Congratulations. Evan, our family's future." My name wasn't anywhere. When Dad raised his glass to toast the legacy of the Mercer men, I felt something inside me shift. I smiled the way I'd been trained to, the polite kind of smile that doesn't reach your eyes, and murmured, "Guess I'm just the HR department of the family quiet. Invisible. Always cleaning up the mess." Evan grinned, half drunk, and said, "Come on, Caroline. You like being the responsible one." I wanted to say, "No, I just got good at surviving you all." But instead, I poured another drink. By the time dessert arrived, Grandma Charlotte motioned me over from her corner table. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached into her coat pocket and pressed the same letter into my hand. "Don't open this here," she whispered. "Not in this house. Not tonight." Her eyes met mine, steady and knowing, the way they always did when she wanted me to pay attention. I slipped the envelope into my purse again, pretending not to notice that both my parents had stopped laughing to watch us. I waited until the house was quiet before opening the letter. The wax cracked cleanly, and Grandma Charlotte's handwriting unfolded across the page in the same even loops she used on every birthday card. "If they ever tell you you're not one of them, remember, this house says otherwise." My breath caught when I saw the document beneath it, the Charlotte Whitmore Revocable Trust, naming me as the sole successor trustee once I turned 28, which was a week from now. I whispered the words again, slower this time, as if saying them could make them real. My grandmother had bought the house on Stonebridge Drive, but never transferred ownership to my parents. The deed still sat in her trust, waiting for me. The letter said she'd done it to protect me from my father's temper and my mother's silence. I felt a sharp, quiet kind of shock. Not the loud, cinematic kind. Just the sound of something long buried finally surfacing. I called the number at the bottom of the page and waited. A man's voice answered. Calm and professional. Daniel Brooks. Brooks and Meyer Law. I told him who I was and what I had in my hands. "Then I'm glad you called," he said. "Your grandmother set that trust up 28 years ago. It's fully funded and active. You'll assume control on your birthday." I managed to ask. "So it's real?" And he replied, "Completely. She wanted to make sure no one could ever take that house from you." 18. When the call ended, I sat still. The papers spread across my lap like evidence in a trial I didn't know I was part of. Outside, the wind pressed against the car windows, carrying the muffled sounds of the party behind me. Somewhere inside, my father was still talking about family legacy. And I finally understood why Grandma had told me not to read this at home. The truth was never meant to stay under their roof. It belonged here, in my hands, in the quiet, where no one could twist it back into a lie. The first call came from my father the next morning. His voice carried that clipped authority he used at work. The one that never invited argument. Your grandmother was confused. Caroline, he said. That trust means nothing now. The property is ours. And you know it. I told him. If you're that certain, you wouldn't sound so nervous about a piece of paper. He went silent for a moment before saying, Don't test me. Family doesn't take family to court, I said quietly. Then stop acting like I'm not part of it. Donatly righted. By noon, my mother showed up at my office with a box of muffins and that look she used when she wanted to soften a blow. Your father just wants to protect what he built, she said. He's under a lot of stress. You could make things easier by letting this go. I asked her if she had ever read Grandma's letter. I don't need to, she said. Charlotte never meant for you to take it literally. I looked at her hands, twisting the napkin, and said, He didn't build that house. Mom, she did. Her smile trembled before she stood up and whispered, Just be the good daughter. Keep the peace. That night Evan texted me. His tone casual but sharp underneath. Dad's pretty upset. He wrote, We should handle this privately. You're not seriously thinking of claiming the house. Right? I replied. It's not about claiming anything. It's about telling the truth. He sent another message. Shorter this time. Don't ruin everything over some technicality. I stared at the screen until it dimmed, thinking how easy it was for him to call justice a technicality. Over the next few days, the pressure came from every direction. My father left a voicemail reminding me how much the family had done for me. As if survival was a favor. My mother texted heart emojis without words, hoping silence could buy peace. Evan stopped pretending to understand and called me selfish. I didn't bother defending myself anymore. The evidence spoke louder than I ever could. The trust. The letter. The paper trail, they were all pieces of a truth my family had spent decades trying to erase. Every message they sent was proof that I'd finally become visible. Even if only because I was standing in their way. The charity dinner was meant to honor my father's new foundation. A night of champagne, donors, and speeches about legacy. When he took the stage, his tone was rich with pride. After my mother-in-law passes, the house on Stonebridge will be sold to fund Evan's business venture, he announced. I heard my name whispered by someone at the table, followed by polite applause that felt like salt on an open wound. I stood before I could think better of it. You might want to update your plans. Dad, I said, my voice cutting through the clinking glasses. That house doesn't belong to you. The crowd turned, the room tightening around us. My father laughed lightly. Caroline, sit down. You have no idea what you're saying. I said, Actually, I do. Great. He tried to keep his smile, but his voice sharpened. Don't embarrass yourself. Your grandmother was sentimental. She didn't mean those documents to hold weight. I told him. The law disagrees. Her trust is active. And I'm the successor trustee. Evan's chair scraped the floor. Are you serious right now? You're doing this here? I looked at him and said, I'm doing this because I'm tired of watching lies passed off as family tradition. Donig. My mother's face went pale. Caroline. Please. She whispered. This isn't the time. I turned to her and said softly, There was never a time. Was there? My father's patience cracked. Enough. You have no claim to anything in that house. I pulled the folded paper from my bag. Then you shouldn't mind if I show everyone what's inside. Atet. The silence that followed felt surgical. My father hissed. Put that away, I said. No, my brother muttered. You're insane. But I ignored him and handed the page to the man beside me. You can read it yourself. The Charlotte Whitmore Trust. Executed and notarized. I didn't write it. She did. A murmur swept through the tables. Daniel Brooks stepped forward from the back of the room. his voice steady. It's valid. I've reviewed it personally. The property is held in trust for Ms. Mercer. My father froze mid-breath, color draining from his face. Evan stammered. So what? She's just taking the house? I said. I'm not taking anything. I'm reclaiming what was never yours. For a moment, no one spoke. The donors stared at the stage where my father still stood. Small now under the lights that once crowned him. He opened his mouth but found no words. I didn't wait for him to find them. The truth was already standing on its own. The courtroom smelled faintly of old paper and polished wood. My father stood at the front, his voice sharp enough to echo. She manipulated my mother-in-law in her old age, he said, pointing toward me. That document is invalid. My mother was confused. Daniel Brooks didn't flinch. Mr. Mercer. Mrs. Whitmore established this trust 28 years ago, well before any mental decline. The signatures and witnesses are all verified. My father's mouth twitched, and Daniel added, In fact, one of those signatures is yours. My father's head snapped up. That's impossible, he said. I never signed anything like that. Daniel handed the exhibit to the clerk. Your initials. Dated March 1998. Right beneath your wife's. My father's voice cracked. I was told it was a formality. I looked at him and said, So you signed the paper that gave me everything you tried to take. His eyes narrowed. Don't twist this. Caroline. You used her kindness to steal from this family. I answered. You spent years calling me less than family. Now you want to pretend the word matters. 1. My mother's voice broke the tension. He told me it didn't mean anything, she said, tears catching on the edge of her words. I didn't know what I was signing. I turned to her. You knew he was lying about me. You just didn't want to see it on paper. She shook her head. I wanted peace. I said, Peace built on erasing someone isn't peace. It's silence. My father slammed his hand against the table. Enough. You've humiliated us long enough. You think that house will save you? I said quietly. It already did. Grandma made sure of it. Oh. Evan finally spoke, his voice uneven. So what? You just get everything? Dad promised me that house would fund my business. I turned toward him. Then maybe you should have built your business on something real. He stepped forward. You don't even understand what you've done. You've destroyed this family. I looked at him and said, If truth destroys a family, maybe it wasn't one. Daniel cleared his throat and addressed the judge. Your Honor, the trust terms are clear. The property and assets belong solely to Ms. Mercer. Aid 9. The judge nodded. The court recognizes the trust's validity. Ownership of the Stonebridge property transfers to Caroline Mercer. Effective immediately. My father's face went white. You can't throw us out. We've lived there for 30 years. Daniel spoke calmly. She's granting you 90 days to vacate. That's more grace than you ever gave her. My mother whispered. Caroline, please. We have nowhere to go. I said. You have time to find one. I had to build mine from nothing. Christ. My father tried one last time. I did what I thought was right. You think this is justice? I met his stare. It's not justice. It's documentation. He took a step closer. You'll regret this. I shook my head. I already regretted staying silent. The room fell quiet except for the steady hum of the air conditioning and the scratching of the clerk's pen. When the hearing ended, my father wouldn't look at me. My mother clutched her purse like a shield. Evan followed them out without a word. Daniel gathered the papers and handed me the trust binder. It's done, he said. Your grandmother would be proud. I told him. She didn't do this to punish them. He nodded. No. She did it to protect you. I watched the courtroom empty, every echo dissolving into quiet. For the first time, the silence didn't feel like absence, it felt like proof. The same roof that had once erased me now belonged entirely to me. Not as revenge, but as record. 3 months later, the house on Stonebridge was quiet again. I'd repainted the walls, replaced the heavy drapes with open windows, and hung a photo of Grandma Charlotte and me where my father's awards used to be. When Evan came by one afternoon, he stood in the doorway like someone visiting a memory. "You look different," he said, almost smiling. Maybe I finally stopped apologizing for existing. I told him. He nodded, eyes lowered. "I was wrong about you," I said. "You were raised to be, but it doesn't have to stay that way." "I do." That night I opened a letter from my mother. The handwriting was smaller than I remembered. "I'm sorry I didn't protect you. I should have been braver." I folded it and set it on the table beside a fresh cup of tea. My phone buzzed with a message from Evan. "I hope you're okay," I typed back. "I'm learning to be." The words looked fragile on the screen, but they were true. As I locked the door, the air felt lighter, as if the house had finally exhaled. I thought of my grandmother's voice telling me, "The truth always finds its place." She was right. The roof that once made me invisible now carried my name. Not as a weapon, but as proof that survival had turned into something quieter belonging. I didn't need their approval anymore. I just needed peace. And for the first time, it felt earned. Thank you for staying with me until the end of my story. If you've ever been told to stay quiet for the sake of peace, remember that truth isn't loud, it's steady. I'd love to know where you're listening from tonight. Tell me your city, your hour, and your truth.